Hello, everybody, and welcome to the House of Commentary. And today we have Stats with us.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so as you will be aware, last week we spoke about the previews to the T20 World Cup final, which just took place, and also to the Brazilian Grand Prix. We will be doing a special show just for the World Cup as a World Cup preview show, and hopefully you'll enjoy that when it comes out. But today we're talking about the T20 final, which took place between Pakistan and England, and we'll be talking about the Brazilian Grand Prix. So, starting with the T20 World Cup final between Pakistan and England.
Two powerhouses when it comes to cricket.
Yeah, it's quite strange actually. You say powerhouse. I mean, England obviously are world champions at the 50 overs game, what they call the white ball game. And we also have Pakistan, who actually
had the best attacking when it comes to bowling.
Yeah, had a fantastic bowling attack. And were not expected to be in the final, were they?
No, they weren't. They were effectively run out until Netherlands beat South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we're still puzzled as to how that even happened.
It was absolutely incredible. I mean, the South Africans have a reputation for falling at the last hurdle, and there have been times in the past where they've had to beat relatively smaller teams and failed to do so, or they've gone in having to just get a small score or whatever and then failing. So there is this thing about maybe they can't handle the pressure, but Netherlands did incredibly well to beat them. I mean, they did have a very good bowling attack and they had fantastic fielding. I saw the game, and to be honest, I think Netherlands deserved it.
I do as well, especially since this is the first time they're in the T20.
Really? Wow.
Because I feel like Netherlands was because when we think of the T20, we normally think of the big teams, so New Zealand, Australia, Pakistan, India,
right,
England.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the biggest surprise was that India didn't make the final. India had played incredibly well. And then
England just came and I can't even describe it.
England totally annihilated them, basically. But it was an amazing game. What England did was fantastic. So as we watched the game on Sunday, Pakistan were put into bat by the English.
Yes, they were.
And to be honest, England looked really good. The attack was good. The bowlers were spot on. And it looked like they were going to be a relatively easy win and keep Pakistan. I think people were expecting them to struggle to score even 100 runs, whereas when the match started, or just before the match, everybody was thinking you need to score around 170 on that particular pitch. And England were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. And then obviously towards the end of the innings, Pakistan came back, scored a lot of runs in the last few overs, but they scored 137. 137 for
which is described as par for T20.
Well, it's very much par. I mean, nowadays, a lot of these teams can easily get 160, 170.
You say that, but I remember watching the New Zealand-Australia opening game, and New Zealand annihilated Australia where they got 200.
Yeah. I mean, they were brilliant. And Australia got nowhere near it, didn't they?
No,
in fact, actually, it's one of the reasons why Australia actually ended up not getting through to the semi-finals, because not only did they lose, they lost very badly. They lost by nearly 100 runs or whatever it was. So the Pakistan bowlers had to be phenomenal in order to keep England to such a low score. And it looked quite dangerous initially, because Butler and Hales obviously opened. Hales got out for one, having scored a huge number of runs in the semi-final.
Because I thought he actually got like a half century as well.
Yeah, he was incredible I think it was 80 odd runs or whatever he got in the previous match, but this time he got one,
which is
terrible.
Which is terrible for an opening batsman, because you expect them to be picking up the pace.
That's right, and Hales got out, and then Salt came in, and there was great expectations for Salt. And he got out for 10. And it's like, what's going on here? 32 for 2.
And as an England fan, you'd be like, what's happening. We're crumbling all over the place.
That's right. And the worst thing is with England, and I think every England fan knows this, England sometimes, they have all the talent, but sometimes it just collapses, and the attacks just goes through all the wickets very quickly. And I must admit, when I was watching this, I thought that might happen. I genuinely thought that there might be a problem where England would just give away their wickets. And even during the bowling, there was a time when the Pakistanis suddenly started hitting the ball and getting runs. It was like, oh my God, they might get to 160. But at that time, Rashid came on, and he was fantastic. He played out of his skin. He did well in the semi-final, and he did well in the final.
As well as Sam Curran as well.
Sam Curran was fantastic. I mean, Sam Curran is absolutely fantastic. So, England suddenly found themselves at 32 for 2, and he won. And just after 3 overs. It's not
three
like
overs. Wow,
it was 3 overs.
That's really
it's terrible. It's really bad. And then 2 overs went by, and Butler got out for 26.
Butler.
Yeah, Butler got
I thought
out.
Butler was their main. He was supposed to be their main man.
He was. I mean, he's such a brilliant cricketer. But all of a sudden, you're down to 45 for 3 after 5 overs, and you're wondering what on earth is going on. And you're thinking, okay, Brooks come in, he'll stabilise things. He started scoring runs. He got to 20, and next thing you know, he's out. And the worst thing was, they in order to stabilise themselves, they actually didn't go for lots of runs, so they used up lots of overs. So it was actually 12 overs, just over 12 overs, and Brooke got out, and it was 84 for 4.
Oh wow!
And it was like, okay, what's going to happen here? You need 60 odd runs, or 50, 60 runs. Is there going to be a batting collapse? And you think, no, it's not going to happen. England are going to manage it. They're going to be fine.
But it also depends on who's coming next as well.
Moheen Ali came in, and he started, played some really lovely strokes.
I remember Moheen Ali. He was like batting the ball all over the place.
Well, he was doing very, he was doing. Well, it wasn't 4 sixes, but he did very well. He got 3 fours, and off 13 balls, we got 3 fours, and the rest were ones. But then you're thinking, right, he's got into the groove. We're going to start getting our runs. And next thing you know, he's blooming out. And it was really weird. 84, it was 132 for 5 when he got out. Okay. And then you knew they were going to win. Because it was 18 overs, there were 2 overs left, and there weren't that many runs left to get. But up until then, he and Stokes was brilliant, I think, because Stokes just kept it really calm and kept the run chase going. But when he got out, it was like, oh my God, are we going to have a crazy last 2 overs?
That's what I was thinking as well, because I actually felt like Ali was gonna. I felt like Ali might have done too much. He was trying to be like the hero to save the game.
Yeah, well, he was playing his game, and England had the wickets. When you get to within a few overs, and you got plenty of wickets, you can hit out. And so it was, all that tension started to release itself as they started to score runs. But then when a person gets out, you start worrying, oh my God, are we going to see another batting collapse? And thankfully we didn't. And it was fantastic. I mean, Stokes I thought he was brilliant, not out at 52. Livingston scored 1 run, but he had to be there. And honestly, it was wonderful. And I think that one of the weirdest things of all was that the stadium was completely full. A massive stadium, lots and lots of people.
Yes, I think there's like 80,000 people there watching.
That's right. But you know what? Most of them wanted to see India, and there were a lot of Indian people there
I did notice
watching
that as well.
Pakistan, and they didn't want to see Pakistan win, and it was like begrudgingly they wanted to see England win.
And it's also important. I think it's also important to mention to the viewers that earlier this year there was actually a test series between England and Pakistan in Pakistan.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And listeners, hopefully they would know that the actual English team played in Pakistan. I think it was the first series after a long time in Pakistan itself, and it was a T20 series, and the England won 4-3, which sounds really close, but actually a couple of those games they literally gave away the game to Pakistan. I thought had a batting collapse or whatever, but you worry that maybe, okay, you think initially they gave away those couple of games, or they didn't play as well as they could have in those couple of games, but you think, oh my God, this is a one-off.
Yeah, and I remember like keeping an eye on the scores, and it was actually like 2 apiece. And I remember England had to
At that
definitely
time,
win.
yeah, we went to the last game. Yeah. It went to the last game 3-3, then 4-3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, England are great. I'm so pleased for Josh Butler, captain of the England team, and the whole England team.
And I'm actually happy that Ben Stokes got redemption for last time.
Yeah, that's right.
So if the viewers aren't aware, if you guys listeners aren't aware what happened, a few years ago there was T20 World Cup where it was West Indies versus England in the final, and
England had done incredibly well.
Yeah.
And West Indies needed like 30 odd runs off the last over, and everybody said, right, well, England have won.
Yeah.
And they chose Ben Stokes to actually do the last over.
The last over, yes. And then for some reason, I think it was Chris Gale.
I forget which batsman it was, but
so
all of a sudden,
it was literally it was literally watching the ICC World Cup all over again. India versus Sri Lanka, where India needed like 60 big boundaries for them to win
of the last over, and India won it against Sri Lanka. And unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're a West Indies supporter, they really, really hammered. It was Ben Stokes, and it was terrible. I still remember that game.
So do I.
The feeling, the emotion
at that time.
And
I can still remember seeing Ben Stokes' reaction. He was so gutted.
Yeah, he was shell shocked. And the great thing is, Ben Stokes has done brilliantly as the captain of the 50 over side, and he's been fantastic. I think he has. I think hopefully put all that past him. The England team is just on fire at T20, and I think that's incredible, really. Where they, when you think how they struggled for a while, but for them, and the reality is that England now are champions of T20 and of the 50 over
overs.
Game. No other country has ever done that in terms of being world champions at the same time.
Yeah,
that is a phenomenal achievement. And I think it bodes well for the World Cups that are coming up. But the whole World Cup has been a bit of a weird one for the cricket because, one, the holders didn't even get through to the semi-final, which is rare when you think about who they were, i.e. Australia. Secondly, the rain really caused so many issues. And there's been a lot of talk about should there have been a tournament during the rainy season or towards the end of the rainy season. Maybe
because I remember watching the result, keeping on the results, and most of the games actually got like runs down, had to be LBW.
They got the Douglas Willow had to come to play. I mean, there are quite a few games like that. They got rain affected, but it is overall, I think it's fantastic. But obviously, I would say that because I'm an Englishman. But I think it was a good tournament. One of the strange things, though, I don't know if you've noticed this stats, but that there does seem to be a lot of cricket on throughout the whole year now.
Yes, especially the IPL, the Test series, the T20 series.
That's right.
The One Day Internationals.
Yeah. So the tournament, it was exciting, but it was a bit weird in that it wasn't as exciting as I think previous tournaments. I think we've now got so much cricket going on that it's
impossible to keep up.
It feels just like another tournament as opposed to So there is I think there might be worth even thinking in terms of either saying these World Cups happen every 4 years rather than 2 years, but then that creates a problem with the T50 game. But we'll see what they do. I mean, overall, I'm just glad England won. I'm really glad that the team pulled together. When you actually think about it, that draw with
Australia
and the loss to
Ireland
under Douglas Lewis method, England had to win every single game. And those games were tough games.
Yeah, and the thing is, I was actually quite surprised when I saw that Ireland beat England, and I was like, how did that happen? Like a low-ranked team beat a high-ranked team.
I mean, Douglas Lewis method is just like that, isn't it? I mean, sometimes the team that loses, if only they'd scored 1 or 2 more runs, or in the case of England, 6 more runs, they would have won the game. But that's just the way it is. And everybody plays under the same rules. So the reality is, you say good luck to the team that won and hard luck to the team that lost, and hopefully they'll do better next time. But yeah, I enjoyed the T20. The best game throughout of all wasn't actually the match in the final, which was a good game, but it wasn't. But I think one of the issues with that game was that England, it was so good in the beginning that they kept the score so low. You knew they were going to win. They just made it hard for themselves. Okay. But the best game I thought was actually India-Pakistan. I mean, England. I thought England was a great game as well.
So for you listeners who aren't aware, when it comes to cricket, there's two matches that everybody goes to see: England versus Australia, New Zealand versus Australia, and India versus Pakistan.
Yeah, those three games. Those are big games. And obviously the history between England and Australia goes back to Calcutta Cup and all that kind of stuff. And then there's a whole range of other, in various sports, rugby and also in cricket. India, Pakistan.
Big rival game. That's all must watch.
In fact, once I was actually in India watching an India-Pakistan game, okay, and I was in Delhi, and the street that I was staying on, all the people came out and sat around a massive TV that a local seller was selling. So basically it was a TV shop, and he got out his biggest screen that he had, and he made it available so that everybody could watch this game. And it was a T20 game. And I've never seen a group that was so quiet, because Pakistan won.
Wow.
Okay, they won, and they won well. And that, oh God, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
I can imagine that being in
the
India.
excitement before the game. And the people weren't even prepared to watch till the end. So, it was really packed. And then all of a sudden it's like you're looking around, and all of a sudden people have disappeared because they could see that India had lost. And that was really bad. And I think that shows the passion there is for the game in India. They only want to see the team win. The minute they hurt so much when they lose that they just walk away. And the match against Pakistan in the T20 World Cup in Australia, I think a lot of people were on the verge of walking away because it looked like India were going to lose.
That's I was thinking the exact same thing as well.
Yeah. But then
the last
the way
few
they
overs,
came back, it was amazing.
It was literally all the rules in cricket. It won.
In that last over, it was absolutely incredible last over. And certainly many commentators have pointed to the fact that they consider that match not just to be one of the great cricket matches, but one of the great matches across all sports. That particular match was absolutely outstanding. And I think the fact that we could see cricket to such a high level and so competitive, not just in that game, but in many other games, I think the World Cup has shown that the standard now is really getting high. You have to be on top of your game. The old scores of getting 140, 150 and winning with that, it doesn't happen now because the standard has got so high. You have to get the 160, 170, which is a really big
even
ask.
200 if
exactly. Exactly. Sometimes 200. So this is, I think this is really showing just how brilliant these cricketers are, and the fielding, and you got to be good in everything: fielding, bowling, and batting.
You need to be a great all-rounder.
Yeah, and England has got a lot. I've got quite a few all-rounders. I know that some of the teams tend to have specialist bowlers, specialist batsmen. But I think it's moving towards, because it's only 20 overs, you might have one specialist, maybe two specialists, but you can't have too many. And I think those teams that had a lot of specialists actually suffered because they weren't able to produce the all-round game to win. So that was the T20. Exciting, yes. Wonderful for England, absolutely. It was absolutely fantastic. And I certainly enjoyed watching the matches. I'm sure you did as well, because you watched quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was great. Then we will follow, and then the day before the T20 World Cup, we had the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Well, so it's actually the same day.
In terms of time frames, it was.
So for those of you who weren't aware, so we actually supposed to mention in the morning was the cricket, and then the following evening was when the Brazil Grand Prix started, obviously because of the time difference. Yeah,
that's right. So the Grand Prix had a lot of things happened prior to, during the practicing and so on. The first thing that I can remember is that Hamilton became was given
honorary
citizenship
which
of Brazil.
I did, which I was not expecting.
Yeah,
but I kind of understand that because he won the World Championship then 2008.
Yeah,
and then he's won there and it's actually become his favorite track.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something about that there were no Brazilian drivers, so obviously the whole of Brazil was supporting him.
Yeah, because the last Brazilian driver I remember being on the grid was Felipe Massa.
All right, wow, okay, it's quite a long time ago.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So it was also a sprint race for the qualifying, which I thought was great. And one of the great things about the qualifying, which I think was rain affected as well, wasn't it? There was the impact of the rain.
Yes. So for you listeners who are unsure what happens with the sprint race, so normally qualifying happens on Saturday, but with the sprint they actually do the qualifying the day before, and then on a Friday. So Friday, it was normally practice session, the first practice session, second practice session. Then the Saturday, they have the last practice session, and then the qualifying. With the sprint, it's actually, the layout's a bit different. So on the Friday, you have the first two practice sessions, followed by the qualifying. And then the qualifying determines the order for the sprint. And then the sprint qualifying determines the starting grid for the Grand Prix itself on the Sunday.
All right. And the amazing thing about the qualifying for the sprint was that talk about having a race turned on its head, because everybody I think most of the teams weren't expecting any rain, and they were all expecting it to be quite dry, weren't they?
Yes, it was.
And then as the rain came in towards the end of the qualifying, teams ran out of time, basically, didn't they, to actually get the really top speeds they wanted. So we had a shocker in terms of who was on pole, which was Kevin Magnussen in the Haas car. Yeah,
which was extraordinary because I don't think anybody ever imagined Haas being pole.
Yeah, on that race for that particular Grand Prix. Mm-hmm. I think was it the first time
time pole position in the history of the team.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
The highest finish Haas has ever had is fourth in when it comes to the Grand Prix.
Which Grand Prix was that?
It was actually in Australia.
Oh wow! So.
But this was going back years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So we had this incredible thing where the qualifying for the sprint became quite emotional because obviously Magnussen had actually got there, and everybody was really pleased with it. It was really weird. Everybody was pleased that he had got to this pole, whereas normally the teams are really aggressive and they want to be in pole. Yeah. So it was really quite strange.
And it's actually quite strange because normally with pole positions you're expecting to be Mercedes, Red Bull or Ferrari.
That's right.
And you don't expect from the lower ranking teams to come out.
Yeah, it was fantastic actually what happened there. And then obviously they had the sprint race.
26 lap race.
Yeah, it was a 26 lap race, and that had quite a lot of incident, didn't it?
Yeah.
So to tell us what happened in the sprint race. The sprint race itself. So what were the key features of the sprint race?
So the sprint race was actually quite interesting in terms of some teams having some. So normally the sprints is quite interesting, but when I was watching, I was like, "Oh my god!" Because some of the teammates, because when the teams, okay, some of the drivers were actually trying to beat their teammates.
Right.
Which you obviously won in F1. But it's also about how you try to be a teammate, because obviously F1's quite a ruthless sport.
Yeah. So,
and everyone has their own driving style.
Okay. So with the sprints, who finished first, second, third, fourth?
So first was George Russell,
which is incredible.
Yeah, and second was Hamilton.
Hamilton came second, yeah.
And Sainz actually finished third. But because of a grid penalty, he was starting 5 places back.
Right, okay. And who finished fourth?
And then fourth was actually Verstappen, I believe.
Yeah, and
then it was Norris.
Right, okay. So Perez didn't finish in the top 5?
So yeah, originally yes, but because of Sainz's penalty, he gets moved up one.
All right, yeah, of course. And then, so we had this incredible thing. Magnussen was not going to finish in the He wasn't going to be on pole for the...
Yes, so Magnussen actually finished 8th overall after the sprint race.
Yeah. So then we had the Grand Prix. And
which had a lot of drama, by the way.
Had a lot of drama on it. I mean, Stats here is going to talk you through it. But one of the things that I think was, that I remember at the beginning of that race, was the expectation that, wow, Mercedes 1 and 2. You know,
their first 1 and 2 is this year.
This season, yeah. And and you just thought, right, how will Red Bull, how will Ferrari react to that? So tell us what happened in the race.
So buckle your seats, listeners, because this is going to be... Because I'm going to take you through the race bit by bit.
Okay.
So, opening lap, obviously George Russell kept his cool and led in turn 1.
Yeah.
And then literally halfway through the opening lap, Ricciardo hit Kevin Magnussen, and Magnussen spun. And as he's trying to keep his car under control, he hits Ricciardo, who ends up crashing into the barriers, and they both get DNF.
Well, it's just incredible. I mean, just think about it. Just the day before, how happy Magnussen was to be on pole position for the sprint. And he's a do not finish after the first... He hasn't even had one lap, hasn't he? I mean, and Ricciardo, unfortunately, also is knocked out. And that was... I don't know what it is about some of these races, but it's incredible how how small things have big impacts.
Yes.
And this is a good example of that, wasn't it?
Which brought a safety car and for a good 5 laps while they were trying to get rid of the cars.
Yeah.
And then, so lap 7, the safety car came in, the race restarted.
Yep.
And then we have another 2 incidents.
Okay, what were they?
So the first incident was Verstappen and Hamilton collided literally on turn 1 again.
Really? Oh, yeah. God.
And Hamilton, and then behind them, Norris and Leclerc had collided. And Leclerc actually ended up in the barriers.
Really?
Yeah.
So when Verstappen... Was it Verstappen collided into Hamilton? Is that what happened? Or was it the other way around? Or did Hamilton go into Verstappen?
Well, so from looking... When I was watching at the time, I actually thought Verstappen and Hamilton were actually... Verstappen literally went into Hamilton.
Right. And did he damage his car?
Yes, Verstappen got front wing damage.
Oh, right.
And then obviously the Leclerc-Norris incident, Leclerc having to crash into the barriers, which is not a nice feeling.
Yeah. So what happened to his car?
So his car looked totaled as well.
Really?
So both Verstappen and Leclerc had to come back into the pits.
Oh, right. Okay. At least they got there, because they can then get the repairs done, couldn't they?
Yes, they can.
Yeah. And then what happened?
So then on lap 12, Verstappen and Norris actually got 5-second penalties for causing the collision.
Oh, right. Okay.
And with the 5-second penalty, you think it's just going to be quick, but it's actually quite slow.
Yeah, it really impacts you, because obviously the cars are now getting quite close to each other, aren't they? So a 5 second can drop down many places at the end.
Yeah, and then after 2 laps, there's actually an interesting battle in front. So Norris was comfortably in 4th place, but behind him was Vettel and Hamilton. Okay. And having the 2 world champions behind you is not an easy thing.
That's right. He's under a lot of pressure, isn't he? Yeah.
But then eventually Hamilton passed Lando, which was quite exciting for the fans.
Yeah.
And then obviously a few laps later, Max comes in to serve his penalty. And he
served it in the actual
yes,
in the grid. He brought it in, so he served it in the garage basically. He just stopped the car for 5 seconds.
Yeah. So for the listeners who aren't aware, with the 5-second penalties, the drivers have 2 options: either to add it to their time at the end of the race, or to take it during their pit stop. But the problem is, if you do it during the pit stop, you have to wait a full 5 seconds, which feels like an eternity before the mechanics can do any changes to the car.
Oh, before they can do any changes? Yeah. So just sit there for 5 seconds. No one's allowed to touch it or anything. Oh my God.
So literally just sitting dark in the car waiting for the 5 seconds to be up, and then the mechanics can change the tyres.
Wow. And so they changed... What did they change for?
They actually changed the front... They actually changed the tyres.
The tyres? Did they change his nose and all that?
They already did that before.
Oh, they did that before?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So he got that's how he dealt with his 5 second penalty.
Yeah, but the problem was at that point, at this time, Verstappen was actually dead last.
Oh, was he last? Oh my god, he's right at the back.
Yeah, because obviously with the 5 seconds, it takes a lot of impact.
It's added, yeah.
And then obviously to change the tires, it
takes even longer, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's then at the back of the back of not the back of the grid, it's actually the back of the race.
Pack.
The back of the pack, yeah, exactly. And then he starts to go through them, doesn't he?
And then in true Verstappen style, it starts overtaking the drivers one by one.
Yeah, which is really good. I mean, he is really good. He's done that quite a few times this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, 2-time world champion. So
yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah. And then obviously with a couple of laps, everyone else started to change for tires and just to keep going into the Grand Prix. And then on lap 52 was actually the worst thing that can happen.
What was that?
Norris retires from the Grand Prix due to engine failure.
Oh god, his car gave up. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and there was and then it being a double DNF for McLaren, which isn't good for them in the championship because their rivals Alpine were actually storming ahead.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously Norris retires, but then the problem is all the marshals were trying to get his car was trying to push his car away from the track.
Okay.
But they just couldn't. And so
really?
Yeah, and so that brought the virtual safety car for about 2 laps.
Okay.
And then they decided to bring in the crane, which brought the full safety car.
So when the virtual safety car is actually on, am I right that you're not allowed to overtake?
No.
You're right. So you're still basically stuck in your position and you're just eating up the laps, which really must frustrate those drivers who think they might get ahead. But it brings the cars closer together, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
But then with the full safety car, it properly bunches up the field.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. Okay. So, how long was the actual safety car out for?
So, the safety car was out for full 4 laps from lap 55 until 59. Okay. And during that time, and before the safety car came out, some of the drivers decided to pit beforehand.
Yeah.
Because they were concerned about if their tires were going to make it to the end of the Grand Prix.
Okay.
And then,
I take it Russell must have been at the.
Yeah, it was actually Mercedes and Red Bull with Perez at the. Yeah, so Mercedes were obviously leading the pack 1-2 still.
Yeah. And
the Perez was comfortably in third, and then behind him was Carlos Sainz.
Oh right, okay.
So, but I actually saw something interesting happen during the full safety car period.
What was that?
So normally during the safety car, the cars that were being lapped can unlap themselves.
Okay.
And there were only 2 drivers that were allowed, and that was the Williams drivers, Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi.
Okay.
And Yuki Tsunoda, and looking at it now, Yuki Tsunoda was also part of I actually thought at the time, Yuki Tsunoda was one of the drivers that was being lapped, but it turns out it wasn't, which was quite a shock because he was effectively dead last.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, isn't it?
Yeah. And the problem was he was actually in the middle of the front of the battle.
Oh right, so he was kind of interfering. He was just in the wrong place, basically, wasn't he? If you think about it.
But when I was watching though, I did kind of feel sorry for him because he's got all the Mercedes in front of him, he's got Red Bull behind him, and a Ferrari chasing the Red Bull, and it's like you're stuck. What can you do?
You can't. Yeah, you're stuck there. So then the race continues.
And then the safety car came in at the end of lap 61.
Yeah, and how many more laps were there after? How many laps were there in total?
71 laps.
71. So there's only 10 laps left.
10 laps left. Yeah, and then as soon as the safety car came in, obviously the Mercedes storming ahead.
Yeah, the Mercedes are really good. They're really good.
Yeah.
It is quite strange that they've struggled all season, and all of a sudden at the end of the season, their car now seems to have come good.
Yeah, and I feel like since the American Grand Prix in Austin, that's when they really start to get the car going again.
That's good, yeah. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in Japan.
Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi, sorry.
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi.
So anyway, 61, the safety car comes in, and then Russell leads, zooms ahead. Hamilton's right up his tail.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the battles behind them.
Yeah.
So Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, and both the Alpine drivers, Alonso and Ocon, as well as Verstappen, were literally a few seconds within each other.
It was really close.
It was so close. Yeah. It was literally like if either of them touched, it'll be game over.
Yeah, it's a very, very close. I mean, it was very aggressive. It was great actually when you were seeing it. It's really great when it's aggressive. So Russell won, didn't he?
Yeah. Yes, but
was there any incident before he won?
No, it was actually. But what was interesting was, so Sainz obviously passed Perez and was in the last podium positions.
Right. Yeah.
And then Leclerc overtook Perez.
All right.
Fernando Alonso overtook Perez, and you're thinking, what's going on with him?
Yeah.
And then what was interesting was and then here's where things get interesting so there were a few radio messages happened between lap 67 to 71.
Okay.
So lap 71, Red Bull gave the message for Perez to let Verstappen pass.
To let Verstappen pass?
Yeah.
All right. But wasn't it going to be... I thought there was a message where Verstappen was told to let Perez pass. Afterwards. That happened afterwards. All right.
And it's actually quite interesting. And it's actually really shocking because Perez needed the points if he was going to finish P2 in the driver standings.
So the initial message was Verstappen should go first. Was that the initial message?
No, so the initial message, so obviously Red Bull were watching Perez and saw that he was going quite slow.
Yeah.
And then they told Perez to let Verstappen pass.
Oh, right, okay.
Bear in mind, Verstappen's already won the championship.
Yeah, because he could have got ahead of the car in front of him.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So basically, the first, it was really confusing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the first message was, let Verstappen get ahead because they thought he might better catch the person who was in front of Perez.
Yeah, which was Ocon and Leclerc.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, Leclerc, I think Brazil was an important race for both Perez and Leclerc in terms of the championship standings.
Yeah.
Because coming to the Grand Prix, there was actually 4 points between the two.
Really? So Red Bull genuinely thought that Verstappen could get ahead where they needed to check it.
And then the interesting happened was a lap later.
Yeah.
Verstappen told the team to let Perez pass because obviously Perez needed the points.
Yeah.
And this is what Verstappen said on the radio. I told you last time, you guys don't ask that again to me, okay? Are we clear about that? I gave my reasons and I stand by it.
Yeah, this has all been cleared up afterwards. I'll tell you what I read. So basically, and as they got towards the end of the race, Red Bull I think it was 3 times they told Verstappen to let Perez pass and he wouldn't do it.
But then, so then obviously there was a whole thing with Red Bull. And then during that time, Ferrari were also having a bit weird as well with their radio messages.
What happened there?
Because Leclerc comes on the radio saying, think of the championship.
Yeah, they're not doing that.
And they're like, does he... And when I was watching it, I initially thought he wants to take his teammates' podium away from him.
Yeah.
And I can understand that because he has to get more points than Perez.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, your teammate's driven so well. Surely he deserves it.
Yeah, that's right. It's a strange one because how many times in the past have we seen teams say the team comes first and the driver comes second, and yet the drivers want to win? I mean, it is a bit of a strange one.
And then the weird thing is, on lap 71, Leclerc asked the team again to think of the driving standings, and the team response was too risky, which really? I feel like is right though.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the worst thing was, on the last lap, Red Bull told Perez that Verstappen was going to let him pass.
Yeah, but he was too far. He was about 4 seconds behind, I think. So but it's quite strange, and it's obviously there was a Ferrari afterwards, and there was lots of messages and lots of people saying all kinds of things.
And after that, Perez on the radio shows who he really is once the team responded.
That's what people said. It's actually quite interesting. I'm going to add a few comments in a second. So Russell won.
So obviously, after a disaster season at the beginning for Mercedes, second last race, 1-2 first time this season,
which was incredible.
Which was like, and I actually felt like, and when this happened, I was just bursting for joy because I feel like Russell deserved it after having.
Yeah.
And for Russell to get his first maiden win in the Mercedes.
Yeah, that was amazing. Amazing, yeah. And to be honest.
And to have your teammate there alongside you.
Well, I thought Russell's reaction was incredible, actually. It showed, basically, when he crossed the line, got out of the car, he was extremely emotional. He started crying.
Yeah, and I think I know why that is.
Well, it shows how much he wants to win,
and also, so I'm not sure if the listeners were aware of this, but a few years back, Russell actually stepped in for Hamilton when he got coronavirus.
Yeah,
and he was actually close to winning the race, but then I remember there was a whole mess up with the tires that caused him to lose the win.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I actually felt sorry for the guy because first time coming to the Mercedes car, outshining everybody. He even beat Bottas. He was even in front of Bottas at the time.
It was an incredible drive. Yeah.
Yeah, and then to let it slip, and then to see it slip away from your fingers, you're like.
And all this season, he's been finishing. I think in the top
5 every race. Apart from one.
Yeah, which is incredible. I mean, it's been really consistent.
Yeah, which is why and they actually give him a new nickname for that as well.
What's that?
Mr. Consistency.
Really? I mean, he's absolutely fantastic. But his emotion, and it showed how much it meant to him.
Yeah, especially,
it was just incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
And I think he definitely got redemption from the Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm so pleased that he won that.
Yeah. And
I think for the neutral, I think everybody was pleased. And obviously for the locals, Hamilton coming second, everybody's pleased because they saw him as a Brazilian, not as British, which is quite strange. Yeah. But that's just the way it is.
And then Ferrari finished third and fourth.
Yeah, which is also
Sainz finishing third and Leclerc finishing fourth.
Yeah.
And then with the Alpine drivers finishing fifth, and then Alonso finishing fifth, which was amazing for them.
It was. And where did Verstappen finish?
Verstappen finished 6th. Perez finished 7th.
Yeah, I mean, and so what one remembers, looking back on it just a few days after it happened, is it was a good race. I mean, it had its moments.
Yeah, and the first time we actually heard "God Save the King."
Yeah, it was the first time we heard "God Save the King" at a GP race, which is in itself special because it shows how strong the British drivers are. But one of the things, obviously, afterwards. It's unfortunate. Afterwards, there was hardly anybody was talking about George Russell, which they should have been talking about. They're all talking about this spat between Verstappen
and
Perez. And initially, I must admit, everybody was very quiet. So you were just going by what was being said and what you saw. And everybody thought, God, Verstappen, what a bad person for what he did. I
know.
However, And that went on for quite some time, for a couple of days.
Yeah.
However, Verstappen finally opened up and also Red Bull opened up. And there were a couple of things that I think a lot of people didn't know, or they might have known slightly, but not enough. So one was that prior to the race, there had been a number of meetings between the drivers at Red Bull, and it had not been mentioned at all during those meetings that if Verstappen was in a position to let Perez through, that he should do so. And I think one of the things that I wasn't aware of, but at the Monaco, I think it was the Monaco Grand Prix, Verstappen felt that Perez actually crashed his car on purpose to stop
Verstappen from getting
a good lap.
And I do remember that because it was literally the last part of it was literally the 5 minutes to literally nearing the end of the qualifying session.
Yeah, and he crashed his car.
And then Carlos Sainz was on his flying lap, and he didn't see Perez there until the last second.
Yeah, and so
and then that brought the red flag and initially stopped the whole session.
Yeah.
And the worst thing was Perez qualified third, Verstappen fourth, and Perez won the Grand Prix.
Yeah, it was quite an incredible win. But the thing about it is that everybody felt, and Verstappen in particular felt Perez had done it on purpose, and then it turned out that was true. And he actually admitted it, that he did it on purpose to actually get ahead because he wanted to win. And Verstappen really didn't like that. And that's and when Verstappen made that message, we're saying, I've told you, you know how I feel.
Yeah.
He was actually alluding to the fact that he had told them that he didn't like the fact that Perez had done what he had done. And that he was not going to give up unless it was all planned properly. He wasn't going to, at the last seconds, give up his position for anybody. And it was only the last lap that they said to him that you've got to.
Yeah.
That Red Bull should have actually, and they admitted they should have actually planned it better and actually said the instructions a lot earlier. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the final lap, the final Grand Prix at Abu Dhabi. But I think that in the end of the day, these drivers are very professional.
Yeah, but the thing is, I actually felt sorry for Red Bull because earlier today during because I was actually watching the drivers' press conference, okay?
Yeah.
And Verstappen and Perez both admit that that they've been getting a lot of verbal abuse and people have been threatening their families about what happened during the Grand Prix.
It's really bad. I mean, this is the problem of Twitter and some of these things.
Just the problem with social media. Because they literally see what happens on screen, but then they don't understand like what's happened behind the scenes. Yeah,
they don't know, and it's terrible to hear that their families are being abused, which is disgusting, really.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the weekend sport.
Yeah, but
obviously there was a lot of other things that went on.
Yeah, and then the thing is, because so obviously Verstappen's won the championship as we know it.
Yeah.
But I actually checked the driver standings.
Yeah.
And Perez and Leclerc are on the exact same number of points.
Are they?
290 each.
All right.
Which means,
what do you think is going to happen?
I'm actually not sure what's going to happen. Because obviously over the last few years, Abu Dhabi's given us a lot of entertaining races.
Definitely. Definitely. When you think about last year, one of the best races ever if you're a fan just of racing, but if you're not happy if you're a Mercedes fan.
Yeah, and then again in 2016 when there was during the whole Hamilton-Rosberg era.
Yep, that was incredible. That was interesting because that shows there seemed to be a lot of animosity between Hamilton and his teammate Rosberg, and Rosberg was, he was going to win as long as he came, I think, fourth or above.
As long as he finished above fifth, I think he was going to win.
Above fifth. And to be honest, it was a brilliant race because Hamilton slowed things down, packed the cars, giving other cars a chance to get in front of Rosberg. And it's a really naughty thing to do, but it's brilliant thinking. But it was really dangerous. And Rosberg at the end said he thought, I'm not quoting him exactly, but he implied that Hamilton was crazy and he was willing to allow cars to drive so close to each other they could have been in an accident and all the rest of it. He really hated it. And then I think he retired, didn't he? Once he got it, he retired. And I think he was just glad to be out of the Mercedes team, to be honest. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, these the last Grand Prix, everybody will want to win it because they want to finish on the high.
And then what's interesting is the constructor. So obviously, we spoke about the driver standings. Mm-hmm. Being the top two, obviously, being the top two, is it going to be Red Bull or is it going to be Ferrari?
All right, so Red Bull haven't won the constructors yet.
No, they have.
No, they've won the. All right, so it's question who's going to come second, Ferrari or Mercedes?
Well, yes, because in the constructors, because the difference between Ferrari and Mercedes is 19 points.
Oh wow! I hadn't realised it was that close.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great race then, isn't it?
And then obviously with the driving standings, it's going to be between Perez and Leclerc on who's going to win. Yeah,
that's going to be really interesting to see. I think the key thing is there's two things. One is Mercedes finally have got their car sorted out, it seems. And the second thing is will Ferrari get their race tactics right? What has hurt them the most, I think
it has been the race strategy.
Yeah.
Because there have been a couple of do not finishes as well, like engine failures as well.
Yeah. They've had problems with the car, but at the beginning of the season, they were so fast.
Yeah, like opening Grand Prix 1-2.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible what happens over a year. So, thank you very much. Is there anything else?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes, there is. Oh, there's a few more things. Right.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I actually did a bit of reading about this about what's going to be, or what people might what's going to happen in the Grand Prix this weekend.
Yeah.
And it turns out this weekend is Hamilton's 200th start with Mercedes.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. 200.
I know.
200 starts. Oh my god, it's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, since making his debut in 2014 when he first won the championship with Mercedes. So.
Wow. I mean, that shows the longevity of the guy, and and he's been at the top more or less for the whole time, hasn't he? Which is quite incredible when you actually think about it.
And then obviously it's also a sad thing as well because Vettel's obviously retiring at the end of the season.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. It's his last race.
Last ever race in the F1, and I'm sure he wants to finish on a high.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then there's also another. So Haas have finally announced their driver lineup, which I was quite shocked. Okay, they've actually announced that Schumacher won't be driving with them next year.
Really?
Which is quite a shock because I actually feel like Schumacher has done so well this season with them.
Wow. So Schumacher's not going to be there.
No. So they're going to replace Schumacher with Aston Martin's reserve driver Nico Hülkenberg.
Okay.
And as soon as Hulkenberg was announced, I was actually going on seeing what people's reactions were, and obviously everybody's gutted for Schumacher.
Yeah.
But then apparently I'm not sure if this is true or not, but he's apparently a contender for the Mercedes reserve driver role.
All right.
As well as Daniel Ricciardo.
Okay. All right, okay, because Ricciardo's not going to be at McLaren, isn't?
No.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about the Grand Prix teams during December, when a lot of this stuff will actually be finalised.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see just how the teams line up for next year. But the Abu Dhabi races this weekend, isn't it?
This weekend, yes.
Yeah, that's right. And the World Cup starts the day after it.
Yeah, which is because normally the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is normally in December, but because they don't want to clash it with the World Cup, they had to bring it forward. Yeah. And it's normally on a Sunday, but they're having it on a Saturday, I think. No, Sunday.
It's on a Sunday. Oh, it must be on the Sunday just before the match starts.
Yes, it's on Sunday.
Right.
So the race starts at 1:00 UK time.
All right, and then a couple of hours later, the World Cup
It kicks off.
Now we're going to be doing a special World Cup preview.
Which we are.
We're going to be talking about the England squad. We're going to be talking about
who we think is going to get through the group stages.
That's right. We're going to go through some of the teams, and we're also going to talk about some of the players that didn't make it. So it's going to be an interesting one. It'll be available to you on Saturday, and I think that's going to be well worth looking forward to.
Yes.
Right. So thank you very much for listening. Please click on that subscribe button. It does help us to help you, and have a great one. Bye.
Bye.